In the world of One Piece, devil fruits are objects that grant incredible powers to the users, but as often is the case with any series, not all powers are created equally, and devil fruits, they are no different. In particular, the devil fruit that belongs to the series protagonist Luffy. Join me in today's first installment of the Devil Fruit Handbook over here on Everything One Piece Explained, where we're going to take a deep dive into Luffy's devil fruit, which goes by many names. Originally, the Gomu Gomu fruit, and by what we now know with certainty is the Human Fruit, which for absolute clarity, I'm going to be using the names that are in Viz Media. For those of you guys who are new to the channel, I've been reviewing One Piece blind as a brand new reader to the series, chapter by chapter, playlist on the homepage. So if Viz is using a different translation than what's out there in the fan community, I apologize, but I will be using Viz Media for the time being. Lastly, since this is only the first installment, we'll obviously cover other devil fruits in the future, and I'll make a different video breaking down each of Luffy's different transformations from Gear 2 to Gear 5, all the variations, once we get a few more videos under our belt. But to be clear, this video will touch on all of those gears, but the super in-depth video for each form will be coming later. So let's jump right into it. The origins of the Gomu Gomu fruit, better known as the true name, the Human Fruit Model Nika, originally believed to be a Paramecia-type Devil Fruit, the Gomu Gomu fruit grants the user a rubber-like body. However, it was later revealed in One Piece chapter 1044 that this fruit is actually a mythical zone type, specifically the Human Fruit Model Nika, which allows the user to become the legendary sun god Nika. So the world government, it had been trying to obtain this fruit for centuries, but it failed because it seemingly had a will of its own, making it extremely impossible to control. Shanks and the red-haired pirates, they stole it from a world government ship that was guarded by Who's who at the time was a CP9 agent. Joy Boy, the mysterious figure from the Void Century, is highly speculated to have once possessed this devil fruit, and given everything that we know about the Void Century in terms of how the world government wants to suppress everything, that lines up with it. Now we're going to move on to the strengths of the devil fruit itself. Now, the strengths of the Gomu Gomu fruit itself, or the Gomu Gomu no Mi, is at first it appears to be a relatively weak ability because it just turns the user's body into rubber on the surface level. When you look at it, the truth though is way more complicated than that. So the true power of the devil fruit is dormant, and the user's body at first is limited like most Paramecia fruits. However, over time, its true potential, it unfolds as the devil fruit awakens. So the base abilities before the awakening is the rubber physiology. So the user's body becomes completely made out of rubber, allowing for resistance to blunt force attacks, so things like bullets and punches and cannonballs, extreme stretching and bending and twisting of the limbs at will, and as Oda confirmed for us in SBS, Luffy can also stretch that thing downstairs. Immunity to electricity, since rubber is a natural insulator, and it has high durability, allowing the user to withstand all kinds of powerful attacks. It also gives the user a creative enhanced combat ability because the elasticity allows the user to move at high combat speeds via things like the Gomu Gomu pistol, which is that stretch punch that comes out like a rocket. It has unique mobility, allowing the user to bounce off of surfaces. It also can use compressed air to inflate the body in terms of different parts like we see with Gear 3, or increase blood flow for speed and power boost like we see with Gear 2. When you get into the Gear 4 forms, you get advanced techniques that enhance both offense and defense. So you have Bowman, that super bouncy and muscular form that grants him high power and speed. You have Tank Man, a heavily defensive version with extreme durability. You have Snake Man, a fast and unpredictable form with shifting attack trajectories at its disposal. Then that brings us to the true power, the awakening known as Gear 5, the true power of Nika basically. The true power of the fruit is unlocked when Luffy awakens it, revealing its zone type origin. So Gear 5's abilities are as follows: freedom of movement. The user fights with complete cartoonish flexibility, reminiscent of a rubber hose animation. You also have reality manipulation at play here because Luffy can apply his rubber properties to his surroundings, turning objects into rubber like we see when he's bouncing lightning and bending the ground He can grab lightning during his battle with Kaido, for example. You have godlike power. His speed and strength and durability, they skyrocket beyond any normal human or devil fruit user. The guy pushed Kaido and ended up defeating Kaido. And for reference, when they clashed before, Kaido was whooping his ass. You also have limitless creativity. So unlike Paramecia Awakenings, which follow very strict physics, Luffy's abilities allow him to fight in any way that he imagines, making this a very, very deadly devil fruit, including altering size and shape and even performing exaggerated attacks. Luffy, for all intents and purposes, is a true liberation warrior. The drums of liberation, they start beating when Luffy activates Gear 5, embodying joy and freedom, reflecting Nika's legend. And that is hands down one of the most iconic awakenings in all of anime and manga. Now, another benefit to the devil fruit is that on top of being able to bend and stretch and inflate and twist into various ways that the imagination sees fit to use the power of the devil fruit, is, in my opinion, one of the most useful devil fruits because it is always active. The body, it is always rubber, which comes in handy depending on the attacks that you're faced with. We've seen Luffy change his body to deflect cannonballs and various other weapons, with them bouncing off of his body like they're nothing. Things like falling from high distances, they aren't enough to kill the user because every part of their body is rubber, including their organs. This is why Luffy can inflate his body in some instances, and as we saw in the battle with Enryu, he's able to survive the electric shocks that should kill a normal person because of the power of rubber to serve as an insulator. He's even able to stretch his limbs to use them like springs, which allows him to do things like jump long distances, and due to the stretchability, he can attack from afar as well as stretch his body to grab hold of something to pull himself away from deadly attacks. To build even further onto the awakening in Gear 5, it causes his hair and his clothes to turn white, with the former taking on the appearance of white flames and the eyebrows having a spiral pattern to them. This power was so cartoonish in nature that even someone as battle experienced as Kaido was left stunned by what it was he was seeing and struggling to adapt. This, when coupled with Luffy's extremely free-flowing personality, which is heightened to extremes due to Gear 5, it makes the fruit an annoyance to deal with for his enemies. This leads to Luffy laughing at inopportune times when the situation is one where he should be viewed as being serious. We see him mocking enemies, like when he's slapping his butt mid-fight, yet the way that he battles is both overwhelming force but also as creative as it is cartoonish in nature, which is part of the reason why it is often compared to Toon Force. Given how overpowered this awakening is, from the power increase to the way that it can be used in the hands of someone like Luffy, it's only right that this devil fruit hadn't awakened for centuries, and explains why people like Emu are so afraid of it. So now that we've gone over some of the strengths of it, let's look at some of the weaknesses of the Gomu Gomu fruit, which are quite a few. Despite its immense power, it still retains certain limitations. So it has standard devil fruit weaknesses. So Luffy cannot swim and he is vulnerable to sea stone weapons. Haki can also overcome rubber. While blunt force attacks normally don't affect Luffy, opponents using Haki infused attacks, so like Kaido, Doflamingo, Katakuri, they can bypass his rubber defenses. There are also energy consumption issues. So gear-based transformations, especially Gear 2, Gear 4, and Gear 5, they rapidly drain Luffy's stamina, causing him to tire out very quickly. There's also the strain of the awakening itself, so using Gear 5 too much can cause Luffy to rapidly age after overuse, showing that his body, as of this recording, is not fully adapted to it yet. Taking it a step further, there are more weaknesses to it, so users have a high vulnerability to cutting attacks and bladed weapons, something that we see in battles with Enryu, Hody Jones, Cracker, Kaido, Katakuri to varying different degrees, though Luffy has shown a durability against bladed attacks, though again, he can sustain heavy damage even when using armament Haki. Another weakness to the devil fruit is that the limbs, when they get stretched out, they take time to get back to their normal position, so this does leave the user a bit vulnerable. But as Luffy got more of his adventures into the sea, we saw him improve his fighting style to cut down on any risk associated with that particular fighting method, which is smart since the deeper into the sea that Luffy traveled, especially into the new world, the more dangerous the threats he faced became. explained. Another weakness to the Devil Fruit comes to us via Eiichiro Oda himself, where he states that attempting to go beyond a certain length can make the user bleed and be at risk of ripping. One other thing that we see is that when armament haki is applied to Luffy's body, it stops being rubber, something that Doflamingo did take note of. So when he tried to use the Gum Gum Thor Elephant gun, in spite of rubber being a natural insulator to electricity, the armament haki for the attack caused it to discharge. However, like with a lot of things when it comes to Luffy, the guy tends to have workarounds. So basically this weakness is negated by Gear 4, which harmonizes Luffy's rubbery body with this haki, making him similar to an iron balloon, but the excess of haki needed for this, it drains him extremely fast. Now we move on to why the world government was so obsessed and so fearful of this devil fruit in particular. The world government in Imu, they tried to erase the devil fruit from history because it is tied to the sun god Nika, the liberation warrior, the legendary warrior who was worshipped by enslaved people for bringing about liberation, as we see in Egghead with Kuma and the stories that he was telling Bonnie. The world government, they suppressed the knowledge of Nika, the sun god, because he was an existence that represented freedom and rebellion. There's also the possible connection to Joy Boy, since Joy Boy was a major enemy of the ancient regime. The fact that he wielded this fruit suggests that it played a role in defying the world government during the Void Century. Its will, it cannot be controlled. Unlike most zone fruits, this one seemingly chooses its user on its own, which is why the world government failed to obtain the fruit for over 800 years. This led to the Five Elders suspecting that this was due to the devil fruit itself having its own will. That was their theory, and it seems like it's correct. By the time that the world government did get the fruit, it was mistakenly believed by others to just be a weaker devil fruit that only made the user turn into rubber. Yet Imu was scared for a really good reason when it comes to his power, and here's why. So Imu's fear of awakening of the Gum Gum Fruit, or the Human Fruit Model Nika, the awakening of this fruit grants the user world-altering power, allowing the user to fight in an unpredictable way, in a supernatural way. If someone strong like Luffy harnessed it, they could lead a revolution, which that makes Luffy, being the son of a revolutionary, that much more poetic. Now, Shanks' involvement is the other thing you have to look at. So the fact that Shanks stole the fruit suggests that he knew of his true nature, and that's why he was so taken aback when Luffy had consumed it, which, as of where I'm at in the story right now, chapter 1105, we don't have a true concrete reason as to why Shanks was interested in the devil fruit as he was, but given how One Piece is written, it wouldn't be a shock to theorize that Shanks knew what the true purpose of the devil fruit was. The failure to keep the devil fruit safe is what led to Who's Who getting dismissed from CP9 and imprisoned, which that's gotta suck. Now, in conclusion, I'll say this: the Gomu Gomu no Mi, or the Gum Gum Fruit, was never meant to be a simple devil fruit. It was the embodiment of freedom itself. Its true identity as the Human Fruit Model Nika made it one of the most dangerous devil fruits in history, directly threatening the world government's rule. Luffy's awakening of Gear 5 represents liberation, chaos, and unrestrained creativity, making him the ultimate antithesis to the oppressive rule of the world government. Obviously, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing, and if you really want to see somebody go through One Piece for the very first time with no spoilers, you want to check out my playlist where I've reviewed every single chapter of One Piece from the very beginning. Highly recommend checking that out, and leave your suggestion for whatever video you want to see me cover in the future in terms of devil fruits or other topics.